There is a simple mistake people make when they look at a war like this. They wait for the official announcement. But life rarely gives you that courtesy. That is why I think the most important story here is not that talks in Islamabad failed. It is that the world has entered a hot limbo and nobody wants to admit how unstable that is. President Trump said he canceled the trip because it was too much travel and too expensive. He said America would not keep sending people across the world to meet unknown officials. He said Iran can call if it wants to talk. He said America has all the cards and Iran has none. I have heard many negotiations described that way in business. When someone says, they can call me, what he often means is, I do not know how to bridge the gap without looking weak. That does not mean he is weak. It means the price of a visible concession has become too high. That is the problem. Now, nobody is comfortable and nobody is ready to end it. This is what I call the limbo trap. A normal crisis has two exits. A limbo trap does neither. It suspends itself. The parties avoid the full cost of war, but also avoid the hard concessions necessary for peace. That sounds safer for a few days. Then the delay itself becomes the fuel for the next phase. In this case, the fuel is literal fuel. The Strait of Hormuz remains the whole story. You can talk about nuclear files, missiles, Lebanon, Pakistan, Oman, Moscow, tariffs, sanctions, and presidential statements. But if the strait stays restricted, if tankers are delayed, if mines remain in the water, if millions of barrels per day cannot move normally, then the war is still being fought through the arteries of the global economy. That is what makes this different from a normal battlefield. An oil shock does not need to kill anyone on the first day to change the world. It starts with shipping delays, then insurance costs, then tanker rerouting, then refineries pay more, then diesel tightens, then airlines cut capacity, then grocery distribution costs rise, then voters who never heard of Hormuz ask why life became more expensive. The military event becomes a household event. That is the genius and the danger of Iran's position. Iran has been badly damaged. Its military has suffered. Its leadership is confused or fractured. Its regional network is under pressure. But Iran still holds one geography that can transmit pain across continents. It does not need to win the war to make the war too expensive for everyone else. That is a kind of leverage. That is why the blockade is both real and incomplete. And real but incomplete is dangerous. That kind of ambiguity invites miscalculation. Iran understands this. It has no reason to make reopening the strait too easy. Reports that additional mines may require months to clear matter because mines are more than weapons. They are bargaining chips. If Iran knows the pathways and others do not, Iran has converted geography into negotiation. That is why a simple deal to reopen Hormuz is not simple. The moment America accepts a formula where Hormuz is handled before the nuclear file, Iran can say its strongest card, force the blockade to move without giving up the larger issue. The moment America refuses that formula, the global economy remains hostage to an unresolved dispute. That is why every rumor about talks affects markets, and every rumor feels thinner than the last. They collide. Then there is Pakistan. Pakistan's role is more fragile than it looks. It had a strong reason to help because it depends heavily on energy flows from the Gulf and cannot afford a prolonged disruption. But Iran's advisors have now accused Pakistan of lacking impartiality, of repeating American demands, and of failing to tell the world that Washington accepted ideas and then walked them back. Whether every accusation is fair is less important than the fact that Iran believes it. A mediator is only useful if both sides believe he can deliver something from the other side. If Iran believes Pakistan can only deliver American pressure, the Islamabad track is not a bridge. It is a hallway with a locked door at the end. That explains why Iraqi's travel route matters. Islamabad, Muscat, Moscow. That is not random diplomacy. That is Iran searching for a different structure. Muscat means Oman, an older channel with credibility in quiet talks. Moscow means Russia, a power that can complicate Washington's calculations and give Iran strategic depth. Islamabad remains on the map, but no longer owns the map. And if the map widens, the conflict widens. This is how a war that appears frozen can keep moving. Under the ice, Israel is another force moving under the ice. If Israel continues hitting Lebanon and Hezbollah continues responding, then one of Iran's core complaints remains alive. Tehran can say Washington is not enforcing restraint on Israel while demanding restraint from Iran. That argument matters inside Iran because no faction wants to look as if it accepted American pressure while allies are still being struck. This is one reason limbo is not stable. The diplomatic front can be quiet while the military front keeps producing facts. Each new strike narrows the room for compromise. Each new casualty gives hardliners another argument. Each violation becomes evidence that the other side cannot be trusted. Then the war returns, not because anyone planned it that morning, but because the pauses became meaningless. Iran's warning about infrastructure is the line I would not ignore. Iranian officials said any damage to Iranian infrastructure, including oil wells, would be answered with 4 times the damage against similar infrastructure in countries supporting the aggressor. That is not simply a threat to America, it is a message to America's partners. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and others are being told that if they serve as the base structure of American pressure, their economic structure may become part of the battlefield. That changes their incentives. That is the wedge Iran is trying to create, and it is not irrational. That is leveraged by second-order pressure. Trump says America has all the cards. He may be right. If the game is pure, but this is not pure military capacity. This is a game of oil flows, mind maps, insurance premiums, allied anxiety, domestic politics, Israeli escalation, Iranian factions, Russian channels, Chinese interests, and market psychology. In that game, cards are not measured only by aircraft and missiles. They are measured by what pain you can impose and how long you can survive the pain imposed on you. That is why Iran is weaker than before, but not powerless. And that is why America is stronger than everyone else, but not unconstrained. All 3 mistakes are visible right now. The bill does not arrive all at once. Time is useful only if you use it to solve the problem. Right now, time is being used to avoid the problem. That is the essence of the limbo trap. Everyone avoids, and avoidance is not a strategy. It is an accumulation of deferred decisions. I do not know which deferred decision breaks first. It may be a tanker incident. It may be a mine. It may be an Israeli strike. It may be an Iranian proxy attack. It may be an oil market move so large that political leaders are forced to respond. It may be a Gulf state quietly telling Washington that the blockade has become more dangerous than the problem it was designed to solve. But something will break because the current arrangement asks too many actors to tolerate too much uncertainty for too long. That is not how pressure systems behave. The public wants to know whether talks are on or off. I think that is too simple. The talks are not dead enough to end the theater and not alive enough to produce settlement. That is the dangerous middle. The plane did not go. The phone may ring. The blockade remains. Hormuz is not normal. Mines may be in the water. Oil is trapped. Lebanon is burning. Iran is touring Islamabad, Muscat, and Moscow. Trump says, call me. That is the whole picture. And the whole picture says the crisis has not ended. It has become harder to read. When a crisis becomes harder to read, disciplined people stop listening for confident claims and start watching incentives. Who benefits from delay? Who loses from delay? Who can survive pain longer? Who needs markets calm? Who needs oil moving? Who needs to look strong at home? Who needs a mediator? Who has a hidden card? Who has a card that everyone can see but no one can remove? Iran's visible card is Hormuz. America's visible card is overwhelming force. Israel's visible card is escalation. The Gulf states' visible card is their anxiety. Russia's visible card is relevance. China's visible card is patience. Markets' visible card is denial. The invisible card is time. Time can give diplomacy space, but time can also give minds, hardliners, proxy forces, markets, and shortages room to do their work. That is why I would not celebrate the absence of open war today. I would ask what is quietly getting worse while everyone calls the pause. A pause, the answer is leverage. Every day Hormuz is not normal, Iran's leverage remains. Everyday oil markets tighten. Washington's cost rises every day. Israel keeps striking. Tehran's diplomats weaken. Every day the blockade continues without a decisive outcome. Gulf states become more nervous. Every day, a mediator loses credibility. The next diplomatic channel becomes harder to trust. That is how limbo turns into the next phase. Not with one speech, with pressure, delay, and a system that finally stops pretending it can hold.